Today's dedication is for Terax, who gave me a very generous 1 year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon. Indominus Rex versus Niv Mizzet, Shana, and Bruna. And there we have a 2-lander with 0 ramp. Well, we do have ramp, but we can't actually play it. No guarantee that we'll get into lands, so try and mulligan on that against my better judgment. That is looking a lot better. Only 1 creature though, and I'm determined to get a good game in with Indominus Rex where we can actually show the power of it, because we haven't had the best of luck in getting into creatures with keywords in this deck for whatever reason. There's like 35 of them in the deck, but I haven't been able to get into them, so we'll try during this game and keep our fingers crossed. A Library of Leng for Niv Mizzet off the back of Nephalia Academy. And we have managed to draw into a Birds of Paradise. I don't normally like playing mana dorks, but we can get black mana with that, so we'll shock in the breeding pool. Yeah, it obviously has a keyword on it, so decided to include it, and if we draw into it in the early game, then, well, there's nothing to stop us playing it for some acceleration, so play that and pass. Another colourless land in the form of Mystifying Maze from the Niv Mizzet the Firemind. He's going to need 4 coloured sources of mana in order to play his commander. Not doing too well so far. So I'm praying that we don't see early scoops this game, because I think every game I played tonight has been early scoops. We will get down a tap land, and we can play the Swiftfoot Boots. Don't want to show my mana crypt until we need to. Just need to hope that none of the opponents go for a wheel or anything. And now seeing a Lab Man after Niv Mizzet manages to get into some blue mana. Alright, and there's a Soaring Half. Ever since this was spoiled, I've been waiting. I don't know when it was released, maybe a year ago? But it's only just been released on Magic Online within the past month or so, and been wanting to play it ever since it was spoiled, so hopefully we'll see some action with that this game. How much is the commander again? Yeah, we need 4 coloured pips, and then the mana crypt, so should be able to go for our commander here. Let's fix some black mana. So get down the Indominus Rex. We will discard the Night Veil Predator, which is the only creature that we've got into apart from the Birds of Paradise. So Flying, Death Touch and Hexproof. That will hopefully draw us into more keywords. It doesn't, gets us into more ramp. There's a Carnage Tyrant for Trample and Hexproof. Put haste on our commander with the Swiftfoot Boots. And then let's see about going after the Bruna. I think would be the most scary commander here. I mean, Niv Mizzet, once he actually gets into his colours, is pretty scary as well, but a ways away from that, seemingly. Invasion of Theros from the Bruna player. So that's a battle that comes into play under the Niv Mizzet the Firemind's control, and he'll have to defend against this. And they search their library for an aura, most likely, which is, yep, Steel of the Godhead. We do not want to see on the Bruna. We'll assume that this is a Voltron build. And Shana getting down a Palantir and targeting us with that. I think we'll try the mill this early in the game. Alright, so this early in the game, do we just have our opponent draw 1 card? Yeah, I think that's fine. Don't want to get into the habit of allowing my opponent to draw, and the more cards we give him, the more he's going to target us with it, I think, but he doesn't have the mana to do all that much yet, so hopefully it won't be that big an issue. Okay, getting into red mana over here as well, so that's pretty good. And Otherworld Atlas, put a charge counter on it, and then each player draws a card equal to the counters on it. So, yeah, I wouldn't have thought he'd go for Draw Pain in Niv Mizzet, but that is a means of him drawing a card or 2 during every turn. The Lab Man goes in at Bruna as well. Okay, so do we go for the ramp this turn? It's probably an intelligent idea. And yeah, just get into more ramp. So yeah, the other option is going for a Soaring Half onto our commander, and it will get fewer keywords, but we'll be able to draw. Wow, really? And Bruna goes down. That's Magic Online. Whoop-de-doo. So what's that player's name? Just need to... yeah, that is the player, so a block. Well, we get to land more commander damage this turn at least on a player that's actually relevant, so let's go after the Shana. Or actually, if Niv Mizzet is going to keep getting into the colours that he needs, then we'll go after him. And then it can be the Kodama's Reach, get a couple of basics out, which means we can then go for the 3 visits and get an untapped land into play. Or we could just tap down the birds and get a couple of tap lands out here. Yeah, so let's go for the Triome into play. And then Farseek will go for Yeah, Overgrown Tomb is green, so we'll go for that. Completely tapped out, and we'll hand it to our opponent. Alright, a Ghostly Prison for the Shana is going to make it more difficult to go in over there. We do have Beast Within available to us though. And now targeting Niv-Mizzet with the Palantir. A Golem's Heart now from Niv-Mizzet. Whenever a player casts an artifact spell, you gain 1 life, so yeah, it'd be interesting to see how much life he gains from that over the course of the game. And then the 2-2 swings into the left again, paying into the tax for the prison. So I'm thinking that this is a more casual deck. I mean, I'm remiss to give time to a Niv-Mizzet player of any kind, but I mean, he's struggling on colours. He's playing cards like this that suggest that it's not too powerful a deck. Alright, and into more keywords there. So it will be Flying, Death Touch, Lifelink, Trample, and Hexproof is 5. That's really good. Play a land for the turn. So do we just go for the Soaring Half now? I mean, we might as well land commander damage. I don't think we're going to gain anything from doing it afterwards, so we'll deal commander damage over here, and then we can surprise our opponents with the Soaring Half at the end of someone's turn, and we'll be able to hold up the Beast Within this way as well. A Haywire Might now may well go after the Swiftfoot Boots. Going to gain a life for the first time with the Golem Heart. Okay, and yep, going after our Swiftfoot Boots, so we might be able to dodge some spot removal and respond with the Soaring Half, or they could see our Soaring Half and raise the Swords to Plowshares. Alright, but our opponent seems to be tapping out here, which is good. Okay, that's the Wanderer. Exile a creature with power 4 or greater. We'll make them take that down onto our commander. Glad I held onto the Soaring Half now. Unless they're not going to do it here. Okay, maybe deciding to try and distract us with this from commander damage. Alright, Palantir being targeted at us now. We will have the mill, I think, because we're hopefully going to start gaining life with the Nighthawk Scavenger's lifelink. So, no, you can't draw a card. Alright, and we just get a bunch of lands off them anyway, so we don't take a hit. Obviously, if we'd known they had a bunch of lands on top, we would have just had them draw. Each player drawing a couple of cards with the Atlas gets us into Pier and a Spark Double. A Prototype Portal now. Our opponent's clearly gone for some kind of artifact build with Niv-Mizzet, which is curious. When it enters the battlefield, exile an artifact from your hand, and then X and tap creates a token copy of the imprinted card. So that is a Staff of Nin. Alright, so at the end of the turn with our opponents tapped out, I think it's safe for a Saw in Half. Finally getting to use this spell after all this time. And then they both enter at the same time, both legendary, so we get to do this first. Nighthawk Scavenger and Carnage Tyrant is going to be 5 keywords. And then the other one resolves. We're not going to discard any more than that. Then we need to choose which one to keep. We will keep the one with the keywords on it. And then we get to decide if we want to put our commander back in the command zone. We will say yes. And now draw a card for each counter on it. So obviously if we had Sakashima in play or something like that, then we would have been able to keep this, but unfortunately not. It has taken a debuff as well, of course. Do we want to Otawara onto something? Yeah, I suppose we could Otawara onto the Planeswalker, couldn't we? Are we going to get into a land to make for next turn, though? Yeah, we'll do this anyway. And then Beast Within onto Ghostly Prison. Is that an idea? Our commander has flying anyway. It's going to be consistently able to get flying as well, so yeah, the thing we're missing is haste at the moment. I may well just replay the commander, because we can discard this for haste, and it'll still have flying and even gain indestructible, so yeah, might just replay the commander here. Won't be able to have hexproof anymore, unfortunately, but it will be indestructible, so hopefully it'll stick around. We're up against white with exile is the problem. Alright, and didn't manage to get into a land, unfortunately, so our commander costs 7. That's 4, 5, 6, 7. We can get Pier into play first to draw even more, which I think will be okay. So Pier, Imaginative Rascal into play. We will search out the Toothy, I think, even though we're going to have to discard to hand size most likely. Maybe we're setting up a Living Death game of some kind here. Indominus Rex Alpha now. Alright, so Questing Beast, Kefnet. We've got Death Touch there, Indestructible there, so that would just be first strike. Our opponent scoops. We'll keep hold of the Ronas, but get rid of the Glisser. And then we need to choose one to keep. We'll keep the one with all these counters on it. Thanks to Pier being in play, the other token goes down thanks to the legend rule, but thanks to Peer being in play, we get double the keyword counters, and that means we get double the card draw. The keyword counters don't do anything for the game itself, but we do draw more here, so... Alright, let's go through to combat. And apologies if you've seen this game, I know that there were quick scoops here, but it does show what the Indominus Rex Alpha can do. And yeah, I've been wanting to do that ever since the deck debuted to the channel. This is the best that it's done, so hopefully you're enjoying that at least somewhat, even though our opponents aren't putting up much of a fight here in the end. Alright, so let's see, if we go for the Ancient Tomb, we can then go for the Nature's Law, maybe do something else. Our opponent's on 12 commander damage now, by the way. So get out a Tropical Island. We have one floating from the tomb, so let's just get out a Ornithopter of Paradise. And we do not have an unlimited hand size. Didn't get into Living Death or anything either. Our opponent gains a life from the Golem's Heart, but it's commander damage he needs to be concerned with here. Alright, so Master Biomancer I don't think will be all that useful. Get rid of a couple of lands. Get rid of Vorinclex, seeing as how we have Pier in play. Spark Double because we have Sakashima, the Mana Dork, and we'll hold on to a little bit of interaction and some keywords. So just to be clear, we've got Death Touch, First Strike, Flying Haste, Indestructible and Vigilance on a 6/6. If we manage to draw into Double Strike next turn, then we should have our opponent. Has managed to get into his colours, amazingly, without any kind of tutoring or anything, so there is Niv-Mizzet the Firemind, will help us to draw some more cards. That gets us into Sol Ring. We'll be able to deal some damage here, maybe getting rid of the Pier. Goes after the Birds of Paradise and the Pier. I think the damage has been done on that front. It's a shame that we can't cast Sakashima onto the Indominus Rex with the Pier in play. Maybe that and Toothy would have been really cool. Alright, well, there's Cyclonic Rift, so we've got plenty of interaction to keep Niv-Mizzet out of the way at this point. We can just main phase that next turn if we feel as though we can land lethal damage. Our opponent might be able to bounce the Indominus Rex as well, though. We do not have Trample, so if we want to definitely get commander damage through here, we'd have to get rid of Niv-Mizzet and then swing in. We can't wait to see if they block first and then bounce it out of the way. If we had Trample, the damage would still go through in that regard. So, maybe for the sake of longevity of the game, we just try and go in for some more commander damage here. They block with Niv-Mizzet, then they'll just have to replay it again. Dare say they might just take the damage here. And yes, they do, so ultimately we're just setting up for a Cyclonic Rift win here. So we'll go Mana Crypt into Sol Ring, and then just play ourselves a Toothy. And then we actually have enough to go for the Sakashima here, so we'll do that as well. Sheerly for the fun of it, because I don't know how often we're going to be able to do this with the Indominus Rex Alpha. So choose the Indominus Rex. We're not going to get as many keywords here. Death Touch and Indestructible, Vigilance, Trample and Haste. So I could have done this before combat and dealt a little bit more damage, but it wouldn't have been commander damage from the Sakashima. So I'll draw a card for each counter on it. And that will put a bunch of plus counters on the Toothy, so imagine if Pier was still in play. I'll get even more plus counters, and it'll be even more keyword counters on this. Funny, there's a Winding Constrictor which does a similar thing to Pier. We've got a Stitch Together there, return a creature from graveyard to the battlefield, but I don't think there's any real need for it. We're just going for the Cyclonic Rift here. May well be that our opponent can bounce the commander and counter our Cyclonic Rift, but I haven't really seen any interaction from our opponent yet. And the Otherworld Atlas has probably done a lot of damage to our opponent in the short run as well. We'll see what he's got for us. Tapping 7 mana, that is an Achroma's Memorial. So unfortunately, tapping out all his mana straight into the Rift. And wants to go into combat now that the Niv-Mizzet Perun has Vigilance, so we'll go for the Rift now. And successfully rift our opponent. Didn't have any free counter magic held up or anything, thankfully. So decided to scoop it at that. We just win next turn with commander damage anyway. Yeah, finally able to do some work with Indominus Rex Alpha. So we basically want to keep cycling through all the creatures and keywords and stuff. You need to be careful that you don't debt yourself ultimately, because there's not many means of giving double strike to the Indominus Rex Alpha, so hitting your opponents one at a time and taking them out with lethal commander damage is going to be the way, but yeah, you can't just keep bouncing this in and out of play and discarding all your cards and trying to refill your hand constantly, because obviously you'll run out of cards eventually. Maybe something like an Elixir of Immortality or an Eldrazi so that you can keep shuffling your graveyard back into the library would be an idea. But I just decided to go with a little bit of a reanimation package in the deck, so we could go for Living Death and get all these keyword creatures out from the bin again if we wanted to, but obviously didn't need it this time. Apologies for the early scoops, but not a whole lot I can do about it, I'm afraid. Hopefully you all enjoyed it anyway, and a massive thank you to the patrons for their support of the channel. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.